Hi, this is Shambhavi. Welcome to my weekly podcast about spirituality, love, death, devotion, and waking up while living in a messy world. The Satsang with Shambhavi podcast is recorded live each week with students of our nonprofit community, Jayakula. For more information and to find out about attending a satsang, visit jayakula.org. Thanks for listening. Much love to you, wherever and however you are. You've heard me mention that Shiva is sometimes called the artist or the magician. And these two words are really related in the tradition because the appearing of everything is magical, that something appears as opposed to nothing ever appearing is like a magical display. This is how the appearing of all worlds and people and circumstance are talked about. And that's inclusive of Dzogchen and Shaivism. There's a special word that means appearings, and I always get it confused with another word, but I think it's abhasa or abhasya, I'm not sure. I'll have to look that up. But in any case, it doesn't mean appearances. It doesn't mean that everything is just appearances. It means that things appear and have this magical aesthetic quality, which is really not separate from its magicalness. So when we do our visualization in the morning and we're visualizing all this color and form and light, we are trying to get a direct experience of that, the magicalness of things appearing and of them having so much variety, so much color and form and crazy, crazy variety that's going on here. So this is the work of, I would hyphenate it and say, artist hyphen magician, that what the artist conceives of appears. That's pretty magical. The other thing which is written about is the relationship of yogic visualization to that process of magical appearing of things. Abhinavagupta wrote that when we visualize things in our minds, that we're participating in some aspect of this process, but also when we create art, we are also participating in that same thing that all of reality is doing. And it's the same process. It's just that our way of doing it is not as subtle as Lord Shiva's and obviously not as cosmic. That quality of the relationship, or what is called in Dzogchen the contemplation, the natural state of contemplation, is contemplating all of the appearings that are coming out of the self, that the self is in a state of contemplation of itself. And what I have compared this to, I think very accurately, is when we create something, like we bake a cake or a beautiful loaf of bread, or we paint something, or we write a poem, or we make a piece of music, or we make some clothing, or whatever it is that we do. I mean, even when we just like paint a wall in our apartment or something like that, or plant something, there's always the moments when we step back and appreciate it. We step back and we gaze at it, or we listen to it, or we taste it, or we just contemplate it in some way. And there's this feeling of both enjoyment of our own creations, but also there's a kind of an uncanniness to the experience, that something that was once something that we just thought of has now appeared as this thing outside of us. And the uncanniness comes because we can't quite tame the magicalness of the process of thinking of something and then having it appear. Even in our very, very ordinary experience, that magic is still there in that moment when we step back and we contemplate our own creation. And there's a kind of a magnetism to that and a fascination in that moment. It's not ordinary. You should try to capture that, try to catch yourself at that and contemplate that moment, and you'll see that it's not ordinary. There's something indefinable, something that outruns just the fact that, oh, I made a cake and now I'm appreciating it. There's something that outruns that ordinary description of that scene and that keeps us fascinated with the things that we have made. And this is exactly the state of contemplation of Lord Shiva, which is also a kind of self-fascination with the creative process and the fact that we have this Shakti, this power to make things appear. And that's enjoyed in an aesthetic way for form and color, but it's also the emotions which are part of that experience. Just like when we go to see a movie, we're not just looking at it as shapes and colors and forms moving across the screen. We're also participating with our whole body, energy, and mind, having responses to that movie. And this is the same with Lord Shiva. Sensory experiences are folded into that aesthetic experience. It's not just a distant gaze. It's something that Lord Shiva, or you could just say this alive, aware reality, is completely immersed in the experience of all of life, kind of announcing this magical creative process and re-experiencing that over and over and over again. The word uncanny, if you're not familiar with it, you should look it up. It's a very, very interesting word. And it's something that has also been written a lot in literary theory. I don't know about other arts, but the experience of the uncanny is something that draws us to it and kind of magnetizes us. And it's this quality of sort of outrunning the ordinary that makes it uncanny. We can't quite get over this, like, even just some little thing that we do, this wonder that just keeps happening that I made that. And it might not be articulated like that at all, and you might not even pause to even reflect on what you're doing when you enjoy the things that you make. This could just be like picking out great clothes in the morning and feeling that sense of, I put this outfit together, or all the ordinary things we do. Those moments are happening whenever we enjoy something that we made appear. It's kind of amazing. When I was younger, email was just coming around, and people were using email much the way I think they wrote letters like in the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries, where you would just have these ongoing conversations with people. And we do that, of course, texting and writing on social media, but it's a very different kind of writing than email's long form, or it was then. Now email's just a pain in the ass and very businesslike and no one pays any attention to it. But for a few years, email had this really kind of wonderful life as this resurgence of letter writing. And I had several people that I was just writing long things to on a daily basis, like reams and reams of stuff. And I always used to marvel that I would always read my emails more than I would read the other person's emails. I was more interested in what I was writing to them than in what they were writing to me. And it always struck me as completely odd, like, why was this? Someone would write me, I mean, even someone I had a crush on, I'd be like, yeah, whatever. And then I'd be like reading my own email over and over and over again. And it's this fascination with what you've made. Like, I finally realized later that I wasn't fascinated with what someone else had made. I was only fascinated with what I made, which I don't know what that says about me. So there's that aspect. And then there is the drama aspect, the sense that there's a play happening. Of course, the word play is kind of a double entendre in this tradition. We have that word lila, which also means sport, like playfulness. If we say someone is sportive, it's a very old-fashioned way to talk about it, but it also has a kind of a high-handed, a little bit of a trickstery feel to it. And, of course, play also means drama, a play. So it has both of those meanings in the tradition. And this is why Abhinavagupta wrote a lot about theater, and you've heard me talk about this a million times, that everything here is like this great play that's being put on by the Lord for the enjoyment of all of the experiences here and the communication, the enjoyment of that. But there's also this aesthetic quality that is identified in the word rasa. Rasa has a lot of meanings in this tradition. In an ordinary language sense, it just means taste, like something you eat and you taste it, and the taste is rasa. There's even some junk food company in India called Rasa, I think. They have snacks that they sell at the Indian grocery store. But in any case, It has another meaning, which is the sweet taste of life, like this deep, eternal sweetness of life is another meaning of rasa, what you encounter when you encounter the essence of reality, that it tastes sweet. If you think of a cheapo snack that you buy in the store that's very sweet, that's kind of like the very gross form of the rasa that we experience when we taste the sweetness of life. And that sweetness, that rasa, is something we also experience through aesthetic experiences. When we have wonderful aesthetic experiences, whether it's music or painting or poetry or drama or whatever it is, we touch this rasa, we touch this sweet taste. It's that word I always want to use, but no one knows what it is. Imbricated. It's imbricated. It's like together with this sense of magicalness and uncanniness, this sweetness that we encounter in the aesthetic experience is because we're engaging with what the Lord does, like the life process of this reality is creative. We're encountering that, but we're also encountering that creativity as a source of wonder in and of itself. Like, we did this, or I did this. And even when we're experiencing great poetry or great drama or whatever it is, we still recognize that there's something we have in common with the person that created that. Even though we think, oh, so-and-so made that, how wonderful. But we also, somewhere in us, could have the thought, well, another human being made this. That there's something we share in this creative process that's really marvelous. And the sense of wonder, again, can arise. You know, sometimes I think that when I watch really, really creative and well-made movies, it's like, wow, we did this. This is incredible. And then we also do all this other crap, which isn't so incredible. But in any case, it's really nice that we occasionally do something really incredible, and then we can enjoy that and feel that we're part of it, even though we didn't make it ourselves. And I think all of these things are something we can all experience, but a lot of us don't stop to experience them. Hopefully you can now pause a little bit and experience what is your relationship when you cook a meal, or when you experience some art, or when you make art, or when you make something. Can you notice that feeling of like just amazement that you did it, that you thought something and now it's there? It's like, you know, it's kind of like when someone gives birth to a child. I'm sure they feel the same thing big time. Like, oh my God, that came out of me. And this is why a lot of people who even feel maybe their lives haven't been so successful, when they have a kid, they think, oh, I did that. You know, that's a great thing. I feel my existence is now justified. And I think this is something of like what anyone who makes stuff feels. When we engage in making something, we can feel more of our own value.
I think it's fascinating too, like how much continuity and organization and like shared experience there is. Like, it could just be a bunch of random imaginings, but it's not. It's like we all share in it together. Yeah.
And also when you think about how much of our day is engaged in aesthetic experience. And this is because, you know, all of Lord Shiva's day is about that. But we get up, we make something, and we enjoy the qualities of that, and then we put some clothes on, and, you know, maybe we do something with our face, and we're enjoying that, and then we go have some conversations, and we're in architecture, and we're seeing all kinds of visual things that people have made, and we're forming our sentences in a certain way, and, you know, our whole life is basically aesthetic.
Looking at the scenery.
Yeah, looking at the scenery. Then we watch a bunch of TV, read some books.
Look at social media.
Look at social media. I don't know how much of this is in Abhinavagupta's book about drama. Probably not much of it, but that's pretty much all I've got about that.